On behalf of the International Fund for Animal Welfare, we are so grateful that you're able to join us for our 7th episode and season 1 finale of our video blog series, Conversation on Conservation and Animal Welfare. We are so excited to share a super fun and celebratory episode with you today. If you can't tell by my attire, this is going to be such a celebration. You're seriously in for a treat. Our IFAW colleagues across the world wanted to share their thanks for everything you helped us do this year in 2020. So we teamed up and put together such a remarkable piece that I know you're really going to enjoy. After we hear from our colleagues, we're in for some fun in Zambia with our partners at Game Rangers International. Rachael and her team at GRI will take us on a tour of the elephant orphanage while the keepers prepare and feed the calves their nighttime formula bottle. It's going to be so cute. The format of this episode will be a little different from what we're normally doing for these episodes. This time, we're going to hear from several colleagues across the globe as they express their gratitude and enthusiasm for all you helped us accomplish this year. Immediately after, you'll be joining me on an elephant orphanage tour, followed by a question and answer segment. My name is Sabrina Foley, and I am the Global Marketing Manager for IFAW. And for today's episode, we have a few colleagues of mine who really wanted to participate and show their gratitude for everything you helped make possible this year in 2020. So please join me in welcoming them. Hi, guys.
Hi, everyone. I am so excited to be here. My name's Kim Jones, and I work in development in California. Have a great time tonight.
Hi, everyone. My name is Stéphanie. I work in donor relations from the Canada office. I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Hey everyone, I'm Amy English. I'm the Director of Global Monthly Membership at IFAW, located in beautiful Cape Cod, Massachusetts. Glad to be here and glad you all could join.
Hi everyone, I'm Kara Marshall and I work in development at the Washington, D.C. office. So excited to be here, so happy to have you all join us.
Yay, thank you so much, Kim, Stephanie, Amy, and Kara for joining us on camera, for taking the time to celebrate with our supporters of all this incredible work. I want us to get right down to it. So grab your popcorn, get comfortable, and here we go.
Hi everyone. I hope everyone is doing well and your families are doing well. 2020 has been a really difficult year for many of you. And it's been a year that's been filled with uncertainty. There was a lot of uncertainty about whether or not people would be able to continue to support the work of saving lives. And I can say with certainty that we have been able to do that, and we've been able to do it because of the support that you have given us, even through incredibly difficult times.
Moana and I want to say a big thank you to our amazing supporters, because with your help we have been able to continue our interventions in the human-wildlife conflict through our Blue Houses project. Moana is one of the dogs that we have helped, and also with your amazing support, Jaguar Hobie has returned back into the wild. So there's just no words. Thank you so much for all your support, and I hope that you have an amazing year, and please be safe. Thank you so much. Gracias.
Hi, I'm Roxy and I'm from the Zimbabwe Elephant Nursery, which is an IFAW-sponsored project within Zimbabwe, and we rescue baby elephants from various situations. This here is Boomy, who we rescued last year from the drought. What I really want to do is just to say to you, thank you, and the deepest of gratitude to all of you who support IFAW and who really keep these babies alive and keep the whole project alive. And without you, honestly, there would be nothing here. So from my heart, from Boomy's heart, and from the whole team, I just want to say thank you.
Hi, I'm Rachel and I'm the Director for Wildlife Rescue here at Game Rangers International in Zambia. So this herd behind me, the 6 elephants here, all orphans that have come in from around Zambia, but I just wanted to highlight to you the two smallest elephants in this herd, who were rescued at the very end of June with thanks to IFAW and all of IFAW's supporters, who give us the funding to ensure that we can do this job, to actually get out there and support these elephants when they need it. And our aim is to get them living back in the world where they belong. Thank you so much for your support.
Hello everyone, this is YK from IFAW China office. I'm right now at the Daotongqing village of Yunnan province, and this is our site for the Human-Elephant Conflict Mitigation Community Development Project. Right next to me is a bee box. Our project is about helping locals to raise bees to improve their livelihood. And in the long run, our ambition is to plant more indigenous plants near abandoned fields near the villages, so that elephants will have food to eat, they don't come to villages, and also the bees will have more plants to produce honey with. And here today, I just want to say thank you for helping us protect animals, people, and the place we call home.
Greetings from Hwanga National Park. I'm excited to share with you some of the milestones that we've achieved in this part of the world. I think during the past 10 months or so, we have managed to support parks in terms of law enforcement, anti-poaching work. We also rehabilitated key infrastructure, including the Hwange main camp to Makona Road. We have also started construction work for key houses for the rangers, which is very important for ranger welfare, for motivating the rangers, making sure that the men and women who are doing this fantastic and amazing job are really taken care of. The future is bright, and I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Good morning, everyone. I'm here at the Center for Wildlife Rehabilitation and Conservation in the state of Assam, India. As you can see in my back, these rescued rhinos, which we are taking care of, they came from the last floods when they are separated from their mothers, when evading the flood waters, or sometime when their mother is poached and they become genuinely orphaned. We thank sincerely to all the supporters of International Fund for Animal Welfare who made this possible for this welfare and conservation work that we are doing in the state of Assam, India.
I just want to say thanks to all IFAW supporters.
I'm Brian Sharp, Director of IFAW's Marine Mammal Rescue and Research Team. I'm joined here today at our Rescue Operations Center by some of the team. Just earlier this year in August, we saw one of the largest mass strandings of dolphins ever in this area, with over 45 dolphins stranding in a single day. It's because of supporters like you that our team was able to respond and provide care to these animals. We are constantly striving to improve the care they receive to increase the chance of survival. Your support makes innovations like the one-of-a-kind mobile dolphin rescue clinic that you see behind us possible. This vehicle allows us to provide the highest levels of veterinary care possible to stranded dolphins. So thank you for making sure that we can be there when animals need us the most. Thanks.
Bien, bonjour à tous. Je suis ici au Bénin avec Nickel, une des chiennes qui fait partie du programme de chiens de détection. Et on voulait vous adresser un petit message, tout simplement pour vous remercier, car grâce à vous, nous avons pu rénover cette année l'ensemble des bâtiments de la brigade canine, ce qui nous permet d'accueillir au mieux nos petits loulous, et également former 4 agents de la police républicaine qui sont d'ores et déjà au travail sur l'aéroport de Cotonou. Et on espère bientôt vous apporter d'autres bonnes nouvelles. Merci encore, et on compte sur vous et on vous tient bien sûr informé.
Hello everyone, I'm Rebecca Keeble, Regional Director for IFAW based in Sydney, Australia. I wanted to send a huge thank you to all our incredible supporters for your generous gifts during our bushfire season last summer. Because of your generous support, we were able to deploy an IFAW rescue team and responders out into the field to help hundreds of wildlife carers rescue countless sick, injured and orphaned native wildlife. We were able to deploy medical supplies, critical food and water and shelter, and give these animals a real chance at being returned to the wild. Thank you so very much for all your continued support. We really couldn't do this work without you. Thank you.
Hi there, my name is Jan Hanna and I run IFAW's Northern Dogs Project, which works with First Nations communities to help them manage their dogs, whether they be nuisance problems or too many puppies. But due to the extenuating circumstances of this year, we weren't able to run the annual spring spay-neuter clinic. And that means that there are more puppies and more dogs that might need to be relinquished for medical reasons, like Davy here, who has mange, or they can't feed them, or they don't have enough money to care for them. And I just wanted to say that we couldn't do this work without you. Our supporters, our volunteers, our donors, you are what makes the Northern Dogs Project so successful. And I thank you, and I know that the community members thank you, and I for sure know the dogs thank you.
On behalf of the Global Disaster Response Team, thank you. Thank you for your support this year as IFAW has continued to support families staying together throughout disasters, especially the COVID-19 pandemic that continues to impact every community we're seeing all around the world. IFAW is there. Thanks to you.
Your moral support of the frontline rangers and the rescue operations that we undertake would not happen without your support, and I just want to thank you and let you know that we will continue to work through some very, very difficult times around the world, and we couldn't do it without you. So an extraordinary year of accomplishments, and those accomplishments are because of you. So thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that was phenomenal. Excuse me while I wipe a tear from my eye. Jan does it every time. Anyway, thank you, colleagues, for your words of encouragement and all the amazing achievements. Thank you, Kim, Stephanie, Amy, and Kara, for celebrating with all of us tonight. We so appreciate you joining us. And thank you to our supporters for really making this year such a tremendous success. Now join me as we connect with Rachael Murton at Game Rangers International in Zambia for our Elephant Orphanage Tour and Question and Answer segment. Now, I do have to tell you, our question and answer segment is going to look a little different this time. We already collected some questions from our supporters for Rachael, but we're so thrilled to have our very own IFAW's Katie Moore joining us via chat.
Hi, everyone. I'm super excited to be here and share this wonderful elephant orphanage with you. I've been there lots of times and I adore it. So I hope you do too.
Thanks so much for joining us, Katie, and all of our supporters who are watching right now. Katie is our Vice President of Rescue Programs, and she's here to answer your questions. I don't think you realize how special this is to have Katie here, so totally take advantage of it. Please go ahead and ask her all the questions you can, but please make sure you do it in the chat box on the bottom of your screen. Please don't use the Q&A box like we typically do. Use the chat, and Katie will get to as many questions as she can. So everyone, grab your passports. It's off to Zambia we go. Hi, everyone. Rachael, we're so excited to have you here for our season finale of our vlog series, Conversations on Conservation and Animal Welfare. I'm just besides myself so excited to see and meet all these elephants we hear about so much. Before we get started on this amazing tour, we would love to hear a brief background of yourself and Game Rangers International and that amazing partnership between GRI and IFAW. And before we get started, I want to let all of our viewers know that Rachael is joining us all the way from Zambia. It is the beginning of the wet season there, so the internet connection isn't ideal, but we're going to do what we can and work with Rachael here. So please pardon if there's any interruptions. We'll get fixed right away and we'll continue down this amazing journey with Rachael and her team. Take it away, Rachael.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting us here today to be with you and to meet some of the elephants that you very kindly support us with. So just to let you know about myself, I'm the Wildlife Rescue Director for Game Rangers International, and I've been here running this project for 12 years now. I joined as a volunteer way back then in the middle of the national park when we had only 3 elephants in our care and probably about 5 staff. It was very, very basic setup. And I have to admit that I'd never actually seen an elephant in the wild before until I joined this project. My animal welfare experience came from marine mammals in Alaska, but I had spent time in the wild and in a research background. And so I actually came out to help establish the Elephant Orphanage Project, which is the first project that was set up by Game Rangers International. And it was done in response to a need, because these baby elephants who were orphaned from their mothers had been found, and there was no real dedicated facility that could take care of them, and particularly with the view to get them living back in the wild, which is obviously the mission that we have, to rescue, rehabilitate and release these elephants back into the wild where they belong. And so with, huge support over the years, we've managed to grow this project from 3 elephants in a bush camp to turning that into a dedicated release facility and building an elephant nursery here in Lusaka, which is where I am today, so that we could take care of the most vulnerable and needy milk-dependent orphans here before moving them out to the wilds of Kafue National Park, where they would begin that journey back into the wild. And obviously, a hugely important part of that journey into the wild is that, of course, we need to make sure they're safe once they are there. And so that in itself is a huge undertaking. And it was very important to us that we started expanding projects. And so Game Rangers International actually takes a holistic approach towards wildlife conservation and focuses in 3 specific areas, which are wildlife rescue, community outreach, and resource protection. So through our community outreach program, we work with the communities living alongside the national park, the farmers, the women in the group, in the women's empowerment groups, the children in schools. We also are working hand in hand with the Department of National Parks and Wildlife to bolster and support their law enforcement efforts to really safeguard the animals inside the park. And so just to give you a picture of where we are today, 12 years later, we support 125 rangers on the ground. We have over 2,000 children being supported weekly through education programs, 200 women in the empowerment groups, and 21 elephants under our watch.
Wow, Rachel, that is nothing short of incredible, and it just brings such a smile to my heart, and I'm sure our supporters are equally ecstatic about all the amazing work you guys are doing with the help of IFAW and the supporters. So Rachel, before we start getting on that tour, which I can't wait to get a view around, I know we had some really thoughtful supporters send us some postcards that they colored in elephants and wrote really kind messages of inspiration to the keepers and everybody. Do you have those on hand that we could take a look at?
I absolutely do. And I'm just going to flip you around to have a look at those. So here are some of our favorites that we printed out. And the keepers and ourselves, we were so touched to receive all these beautiful postcards with all the well wishes being sent to us and words of support and encouragement. And in particular, this rainbow Ellie here, I thought I'd read it out because this is from Jackson B in Miami. And he says, "Dear Mbila Nzongo, the best of luck with the herd. I know you're doing great. I know it's hard being in a new place and being alone, and I know that you are doing great. I hope that one day you can be free in the wild again, and I am so thankful you are safe and healthy. Give all my thanks to those who have helped rescue you." And thank you so much, Jackson, for your words. It's super encouraging, and it really sums up the work that we're doing here with the orphaned elephants.
Yes, that's so sweet. Thank you, Jackson, and everybody else who took the time to color those in and send that the sweet messages in. We really can't express to you how much it means to us. It seems so, simple and easy, but it really is so thoughtful, especially I think now more than ever with COVID, all these things to just inspire us is really just so important. So thank you for that. Rachel, I think this is a great opportunity for us to start with the tour. Can you give us a sneak peek behind the scenes?
Yeah, so just behind me, you can see the elephant stables, which we call the boma. There's a little paddock here, and then the stables where the elephants will be sleeping. So you'll see them being tucked up into their stables just now. And so they are there in the hours of darkness. And the rest of the time, they are walking in the bush. So hopefully you can also see behind me that we are in, let me flip you around again. That we are in the bush here, and there is space for the elephants to roam and to forage, which is so important, and to spend time in a natural setting. But actually here at Lalai, we are a bit challenged because unfortunately the city has encroached upon us quite dramatically in the last few years. And once upon a time, we only heard bush babies at night, but now, unfortunately, we can hear discos and bars and cars. And so the city's become very, very close. And so it looks ideal right now, but it is something that we're trying to move away from. And just wanted to take this opportunity to say a huge thanks to IFAW and the IFAW supporters who are working with us in helping to achieve our goal of actually moving from here and to relocate this nursery into a much more secure and wild space for these baby elephants.
Oh, Rachel, thank you so much for bringing that up. That's truly terrifying to have the encroachment of a city into somewhere that's supposed to be so calm and, you know, focused on the elephants. I'm sure that affects their rehabilitation. So can we get a tour of the rest of the facilities?
Yeah, so actually a big part of the elephant's life and focus coming from their stomachs is milk and milk formula. So I'm just going to take you over to the milk kitchen where you will meet Oscar, who is busy preparing the milk formula. So I'm going to flip you around.
Great.
This is Oscar.
Hi, Oscar.
Thanks very much for joining us this evening.
Oh, we're so excited to have you here with us, Oscar.
Yeah.
And Oscar is our deputy head keeper. He's been with the project for longer than I have. And he's going to show you how to prepare some elephant milk. I'm not going to step inside the milk kitchen because our internet will fail us. So I'm just going to hang here at the door. But you can see Oscar's already been busy preparing milk bottles. There are 6 elephants here. There's a lot of milk to make. Okay.
Yummy.
So that is primarily infant formula with a lot of supplements thrown in, including coconut and whey for protein. And then Oscar is just mixing up the final one right now. Also moringa, which is a natural leaf that occurs here full of nutrients. And then jungle oats or porridge oats, which most of us enjoy for our breakfast.
Jungle oats?
That's so cool. So it's not like cow milk or anything like that, right, Rachel?
No, actually cow's milk would make them quite sick. They can't digest it. So this formula is kind of specialized as close as we can towards a supplement for an elephant milk. There we go. And that's why we have to add lots of bits and pieces to it. Although the base of the formula is infant, human infant formula, it's not perfect as is, and we have to top it up with all these different pieces. Great stuff, Oscar. And then just behind Oscar, you might see there's a board on the wall, and that board details all the elephants with their names and the components of their specialized formula, because every elephant here is of a slightly different age or condition or stage in their release. And so we actually tailor the milk specifically for each elephant so that we make sure that they're getting the ideal nutrients.
Wow. So each elephant has their own formula, their own concoction of different things depending on what they need.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow, that's really specialized care right there, Rachel.
It is. And then just to also add that they get these bottles every 3 hours around the clock. So it's a pretty busy day in the life of a keeper. They are constantly preparing milk, washing up bottles, sterilizing bottles, and preparing the next round.
Right. And they have to be warm too. Oh.
Yeah, that's correct. Make it body temperature so that it's easily absorbed by them.
Wow. Oscar, that's a lot of work you're doing.
I'm done.
That's so great. And I do want to mention to our supporters that Oscar, we got a great interview with him, and we have a Day in the Life series, which Oscar will be doing our first one. So please look out in your mail for that amazing thing. We got to do an interview with Oscar, asking him all these questions of the amazing work he's doing with the elephants. So stay tuned in your mailbox for that.
Oh, no, it's okay, Oscar.
Thanks, Oscar.
Thanks so much.
So now we're just waiting for the elephants to return, and their tummies are generally like clockwork, so they should be here any moment now. And what we'll do is I'll just move further back into the boma so that you get a nice view of them coming in. They usually do come in at quite a pace this time of night because they are hungry.
Yes.
despite the fact that they've been out in the bush eating non-stop. So, you know, it's a really important part of their diet is actually natural forage, and particularly for the older elephants. So, you know, they start off life being 100% milk dependent, as babies are. And then over time, they start to, you know, pick up leaves and browse and fiddle with it and then start to eat it. And then by the time they're about 1 year old, they're very, very proficient in eating browse. But at that age, if you just gave them browse, they wouldn't survive. And in fact, elephants really wouldn't be weaned from their mothers until they're about 3 years old. So we bottle feed them up until that time. And are bottle fed, as I said, slightly different formulas, so that they're not fully reliant on that milk. And they are focusing a lot more on the vegetation. And then when they leave this facility to go to the release facility, they are fed for a short period of time, really just as a form of comfort and support, because you can imagine leaving the home they've been in here for maybe 2 to 3 years is actually quite traumatic. Even though they're going to a big national park with all these other elephants who will become their family, it's quite nerve-wracking. So we actually make sure that we still feed them milk when they get to the release facility so that they settle and they calm and they're still getting that support. And we find they need it for quite some time because the walks become longer. There's a lot more energy expenditure. There's a lot more playing. And so they're just, you know, there's a lot more happening to their bodies. And so we don't want to compromise their development and growth and health by taking away duty. So we'll feed them sometimes up to a year after the time they've been taken there. And then around that time, they are weaned off of the milk, and then they are fully reliant on the natural vegetation, which is ideal because obviously they're going to have to live off of the wilds at some point in the future.
Right. Oscar's not going to be feeding them bottles for the rest of their lives. So Rachel, can you tell us why you're not in the Boma paddock area and why you're standing outside of the fence right now?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So the elephants who are here, even though they are to a certain extent quite small, they could hurt me if they wanted to, because they don't know me. I am not one of their keepers. The keepers are living with these elephants around the clock. The keepers really become like the mother figure to the elephants, and they build up a really strong relationship, a bond, and it's a sort of mutual respect. And so we kind of endeavor within our release program to try and minimize all other human impact on the elephants and not have the rest of us becoming their friend and becoming close to them and them allowing that. So we would rather that, you know, actually I'd rather they did chase me, even though it's not good for me. Because we want them to become wild one day and not friends with people, because if they're friends with people, they won't survive. So we try and minimize that contact from the beginning. But obviously there's a trade-off, because if we don't feed them by hand, they won't be fed. So that's why I'm behind the Boma. I'm also wearing a dust coat, so I kind of blend in with the team. And here is the team and the elephants.
Oh, here they come.
Hopefully you can see them just coming through the gate, led by Brenda.
Oh, look at that.
Okay, so Ludaka is in the front, followed by Olimba and Mbila. And then Lani, Tuko, and last but not least is little Zongo.
Is Zongo smaller than Mbila?
He is, yeah. He's a bit smaller. He was a bit more tricky to help rehabilitate at the beginning, a little bit more sensitive. As you can see, most of the elephants know their stables and they go almost straight in. They're very much creatures of habit and routine. And we feel that the routine that we establish for them is actually really important in helping them overcome the initial traumas and the stress that they go through, because then they have a constant in their lives. But of course, one is always going to be naughty.
Okay. Oh, I don't want to.
But she wants her milk, so she will eventually. It could also be that I'm standing here that's putting her off and making her think she might play up for the camera.
Oh.
So I'm just going to stop back a bit. You can't rush an elephant.
Oh man, we can't get this, doesn't get any better.
A naughty baby elephant.
Oh my gosh.
There she goes.
Rachel, can you tell me at what age do they start growing their tusks?
Yeah, so they often break through the gum at around 1.5 years. But you won't really see that visually unless you've pulled the trunk up and had a good look. So normally by 2.5 years old, you can see the tusk below the lip line. So you'll just see a tiny dot of white tusk coming through. But of course, like all of us, we grow at different rates, and elephants are no exception. Well done, guys. And their tusks do grow differently. And in fact, when we look a bit closer at Ludaka, you'll see that one of his tusks is longer than the other. And so they came through at slightly different rates.
And Rachel,
okay, so now they...
Oh.
I think it irritates them. And in some cases, we find that there is a small infection that develops once the tusk is coming through that we can just clean with salt water, but it's nothing, major. And of course, in the wild, they wouldn't have that. But then in the wild, they're getting mother's milk full of antibodies. So, we always try to clean it up when that happens. I'm just waiting for the milk before I walk near the stables. Otherwise, I'll upset the elephants.
Yeah, look, I can see them jumping up.
Mbila. Okay, our friend Elvis here is going to feed Mbila. Hi, Elvis.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Hi, Elvis.
Okay.
Hello, how are you?
Good. Look at Mbila's really excited.
Yeah.
Naughty Mbila, who wouldn't go in her stable.
Look at the mess she's making.
Yeah, I'm just going to zoom in so you can have a quick listen to that noise.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah, they absolutely love their milk. Best time of the day.
Oh.
And then just to tell you a bit about Mbila. Oh, that's the best sound. Mbila, hopefully some of the viewers know Mbila from her rescue in June this year. Both Mbila and Zongo were rescued together in a place called Shizongo, where their herd had actually come into a community. The community hadn't seen elephants for 5 years and were completely thrown by the situation, and so chased the elephants away. And very tragically, both Mbila and Zongo here got separated from their mothers in the confusion. And the herd had run away and we could not locate them. So these two babies were found about 1 kilometer away from each other. But in otherwise, fairly good condition, traumatized and upset, but healthy because they had just left their mothers. And so it wasn't too difficult to help them. So Mbila's 9 months old and Zongo here is about 8 months old. And of course, that's an approximation. We're never 100% sure.
Right.
And he's being fed by Brenda.
Hi, Brenda.
I'm going to shine the spotlight on Brenda.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Thank you for joining us.
Okay, thank you.
So Brenda also joined us at the same time as Mbila and Zongo, because it struck us that we hadn't previously had a female keeper, and yet these baby elephants really do well with a female touch. Not saying that our male elephant keepers are not doing a great job, because they are, but sometimes that feminine voice and caressing the head is what they really need when they're little babies. And so Brenda has been brilliant at helping to nurture these two, help them overcome some of their traumas from the beginning of their separation from their mothers. And next door to these two is Olimba. And Olimba is now 2 years old. And Oscar's feeding Olimba.
Hi again, Oscar.
Hi.
And Olimba has a very, very tragic story, because when she was identified, she was actually with her mother, and her mother was seen with snares on her legs, which was slowing her down. But on closer inspection, it was seen that she'd actually been shot 3 times by poachers. And those bullet wounds were unfortunately fatal. And so Olumba's mother was euthanized to put her out of her misery, and poor Olumba became an orphan. And so very traumatized from that experience. And it's not uncommon when you get high levels of trauma like that for these elephants to suffer some kind of post-traumatic stress, whether that is having nightmares, screaming in their sleep, becoming very, very needy, or the opposite, actually becoming very depressed and sort of dejected and sad. So the fact that we see Olumba running around with this little herd, kind of mothering these little 2 next door to her and looking so fit and healthy is hugely rewarding, given the horrible start to life she's had. Okay, and then we are going to go over to Lani. Warm rumbles from Lani. And Lani is particularly fond of her milk because she was pretty skinny when we found her. She had lost her family in a place called Farah, which is on the border of Zambia and Mozambique. And often we find in places where 2 countries border, there can be a lot of wildlife crime because of the porous nature of the borders. And so, it's very likely that her mother had been shot on one side of the river. So she crossed the river to get into Zambia and was found by a community wandering alone. And in fact, her story is very similar to her neighbour here, Ludaka, except he was even more emaciated when he was found, and he was a bit older than her. He was nearly 2.5 years old when he was found, and very, very skinny. And he's the one I mentioned who has a lopsided tusk.
And how old is he?
So both of these elephants were found in the area that we consider to be our greatest hotspot. He is now 3.5 years old. So he's very ready to be moved to the release facility. And so what we're going to be doing is just waiting for the rains to clear up. Because when there is a lot of rain and the park's very wet, vegetation goes amazing, but also so do the parasites. And so if we move the elephants across at this time of year, there is a risk there's a lot of parasites in nature that they're not used to from being here in this game park in the city. And so, of course, moving facility, moving home, moving families, it's all stressful enough with like jump and cause you other problems. So we're actually going to wait till the dry weather at that time of year instead. And Ludaka, and she is now 3 years old, also loving her milk.
Rachel, you cut off a little bit about the rainy season and why you're waiting to release them. Can you just say again why you're waiting to release after rainy season or move him?
Okay, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes, much better.
Okay, great. Yeah, so after the rains, it's very likely there'll be less parasites in the environment. So it means that we'll be giving the elephants a better chance to move into a space where there's less sort of negative effects that could happen. Moving in while there's a high parasite load in the environment will just mean that they're subjected to that, and it's another stress to add to their bodies. So we're trying to minimize stress when we move them, because moving away from this place, which is their home and their family that they know and love, is already going to be stressful enough.
Oh, okay. Thank you for filling us in on that. That's crazy. So I know that I could watch these elephants being fed and chatting with you about this all day because it's just so incredible. But in true vlog fashion, we do have to get to our question and answer segment. So at this time, all of our viewers, this is going to be a little different than what we typically do. So if you could please put your questions in the chat box on the bottom of your screen, not the Q&A box. We already received some questions that we're going to be asking Rachael from our supporters, but we do, excitingly enough, have our very own Katie Moore, IFAW's Director of Rescue and Disaster Relief here. So she will be answering your questions in the chat box. So please go ahead and ask any questions you have about this program and others, and Katie Moore will be happy to answer as many as she can. So let's go ahead and get started with the questions that we already have ready for you, Rachael, from our supporters. And the first one we have right now is, why are the bomas shaped the way they are in that circular type of shape?
So they are shaped in a circular fashion so that the elephants can actually be quite social. And there's always more than one sort of neighbor next to another elephant. I'm just going to stand up the top here so you can kind of see how that works in segments. Mm-hmm. So we've got Mbila next to Zongo, and Zongo next to Olimba, and Olimba next to Lani. And so it's very social. They can put their trunks over the top or through the bars and actually have comfort, but have the solid wall between them, which is so important, because if they're all in one space together, the biggest elephant will get all the food, and the playful ones will climb on the others, and then no one will get any sleep. So from our experience, we've had to make sure that they are stabled separately for management. And I'm not sure if you can see because it's getting pretty dark, but at the top here, we've got some tents, and they're on the deck above elephants.
Oh. So that's where the keepers stay.
Okay, so that's where the keepers spend the night. Yeah, the keepers will actually sleep there so that they are with the elephants all the time. These elephants are never left alone. You know, once they've lost their mothers, we never want to put them through that kind of fear again. So they're always supervised while they're here, day and night, and they are fed every 3 hours, which means midnight and 3 a.m. And so the keepers are sleeping here to be with these elephants all the time, providing them everything that they need.
Wow, that is so cool to be sleeping up there in those tents right above all the elephants. They're obviously safe, so the elephants don't, step or roll on them, but they still get to experience and be with those elephants all night, which is just so cool. I really don't have anything else to say, but how awesome that is. So another question we have here is from John from Rhode Island. And John is asking if the elephants consume any solid food in addition to bottle feeding, which we can see right now they do eat other things. But Rachael, can you expand on that a little bit? Maybe like what are their favorites and things like that?
Yeah. So as Tuco is clearly demonstrating that they do eat solid foods, is the most important part of their development, because that's what they'll be relying on in the future. So maybe to answer John's question is that we don't give them solid foods that are artificial. The solid foods that they get here are natural foods. And that's really just to, as I say, promote their development in foraging and that ability to survive off the natural forage. However, at the release facility, we do have to provide some supplements, because the elephants are, when they're small, they're kept inside a large enclosure overnight for their own protection, because elephants like the size of Tuco and Lani and Ludaka, who are about to move, would be easily predated by lions if they were wandering around freely in the park. So we actually have to secure them in a boma. And of course, to bring enough browse to keep one elephant happy all night long is a huge undertaking. And when you've got 15 elephants, it's a big problem. So we do use some wildlife pellets to supplement their intake to make sure that they are getting the nutrition they need throughout the night.
Wow, I can't imagine how much they eat. That's incredible. Thank you for that. And thank you for that great question, John. Another question we have here is from Jennifer. And Jennifer is asking, Jennifer's from California. She's asking, how do you know where to release the elephants, and what is the standard length of time an elephant is with you? That's a great question, Jennifer.
Yeah. So I think I mentioned at the start that we have a facility in Kafue National Park. And so program is that they release themselves together, little family. When they move from the nursery to the release site, they form a bigger family and they spend a number of years together becoming like a surrogate herd. And so it would be unfair to try and release them separately because of course that's become their family, the elephants they know and love. So the idea is they will release together as and when they feel confident and comfortable to do so. And we would expect that to mimic the behavior of wild elephants. So in a wild scenario, bull elephants, the males, would leave their mothers' herds anywhere between sort of 8 and 12 years old. That's when their hormones start to kind of push them to move away from mum and to actually seek other bull elephants to spend time with, or an older dominant bull to actually learn from. And that's like a hormonal developmental process. So we would expect the orphans, and we would hope that the orphans would exhibit similar feelings and have that similar drive to step away from the sort of the family nest, as it were. And the challenge really would be for the female elephants, because in a natural system, the females wouldn't leave mum. They would actually stay with mum. And it's so important in a matriarchal system that the females all do stay together and they support one another through the process of actually birthing and raising the young. And they need that support network in order to keep their calves alive. So the female elephants won't be able to just be off one at a time unless they join a wild herd and a female herd accepts them. Otherwise, they'll need to go as a small group.
Oh, wow. That's really fast.
And sorry, so in terms of the duration, yeah, so we wouldn't really be expecting to see the elephants wander off until they're in their early teens.
Wow. So we're talking about a 13-year approximate commitment of the whole entire rehabilitation process. That's incredible,
Yes,
Rachel.
yeah. Yeah, it's a long haul project. As I said, there's nothing quick about elephants. They take their time with everything. So on average, it's 3 years here, maybe 8 years or so at the release facility. And when they're at the release facility, they go through stages of release. So we actually monitor them in terms of their behavior and their physical development, and we kind of categorize them in stages as we monitor the progression, and that we can get an idea of who is about to go. And if they are going to go, then we make sure that we try to put on a satellite collar so that when they are off in the wild, we know where they are. We can start to sort of build up a picture of who they're with, the areas that they're using. So are they foraging in the same areas as wild elephants? Are they reproducing like wild elephants? And that will really start to give us a picture of success. Because obviously our ambition is to get these elephants to be living as wildly as possible.
Absolutely. Wow, Rachel, that's, those stages of release, I'd love to hear more about that. And we do actually have a question about that. So let me go ahead and ask, since it just follows up from that, which is perfect. So we have a question here, and this is from somebody anonymously submitted this question, and they asked, one, how do you track the elephants upon release, which I think you touched upon, and how do you reintegrate them into the herd? So when do you know it's time? So can you talk a little bit more about those stages?
Okay, so the stages start when they're here. So stage 1 is the nursery level. Stage 2 is when they are at the release facility, but they're still very sort of dependent. They're getting milk still. They might be utilizing a stable. Stage 3 is when they are spending their nights inside our outer boma, which is a 3-hectare paddock. And it means that they are spending their nights socializing, which is a really key part of their progression, because becoming part of a larger herd and understanding the social dynamics and the herd hierarchy is really essential skills for these elephants to then actually become able to integrate into wild elephants or socialize or interact with wild elephants appropriately. Because if you don't behave appropriately, you're not going to be tolerated and you might get wounded. So we really want them to behave themselves. So stage 3 is a really, really important stage, and it's the longest stage because that's when they are with the herd, forming sort of friendships, forming subherds within the herd, and really getting a lot of time together, but also every day out in the national park, foraging, understanding where the resources are, learning what's good, what's not, what's available at which time of year. And then the elephants in stage 3 would probably be up to, say, like 4 years old, maybe up to about 10 years old.
Oh, okay.
And then stage 4 would be the elephants who then take the next step of bravery and decide they are confident enough to leave the safety of the outer boma at nighttime. And so those elephants, we see them walking with the orphan herd during the day, but by night they don't come into the boma. They tend to stay outside and forage for themselves throughout the night, but they generally don't go very far because they're still a bit nervous. And unless there's a large number of them, they don't really want to take that big step. And so they're usually spending about more than 50% of their time with the orphan herd. The stage 5 elephants are when they are feeling even more confident and they spend less than 50% of their time with the orphan herd. And then our stage 6 elephants are the fully released wild elephants who come into contact with the orphan herd less than 10% of their time. And right now we are super excited because we have a success in an elephant called Batoka, who was rescued in 2009, and he is now 13 years old. And since February this year, he has been out wandering freely and widely and mostly with other wild elephants. And we know this because his satellite collar shows us where he's been, and we see that he's moving the same areas as the wild herds. He's actually been seen with a lot of wild elephants as well. And it's magical for us because bypassers who will take photos of wild elephants and happen to see one with a collar will then send us a photo, and we know it's him. And we've seen him, wrestling with wild elephants and touching them with his trunk, and he's really amongst the herds all the time. So it's super exciting, and it really does start to feel like a big success to see that.
That's fantastic, and congratulations for that huge success. It really was just recently announced. I know IFAW did a big piece about that success. They wrote a piece on it. So congratulations. And I mean, that's what we hope for all the elephants, really, at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is just the start. So we actually now have 8 of the elephants with collars on in anticipation that they might start to wander off. And as I've said, you can never guarantee when it's going to happen. There are indicators that all of those elephants are likely to go, but we'll see. Because it can sometimes take a long time for them to build their confidence.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're all such sweet.
It's a scary world out there.
It is a scary world out there. It's scary for me. So I can't even imagine what it's like for these little orphaned elephants. So thank you, Rachel. And we could really be talking about this forever. I've had so much joy meeting all the elephants and talking to you, Rachel, throughout this whole thing. But we do need to wrap it up. And I just want to thank all of our supporters for being a part of this incredible journey. This entire episode was about you, and to thank you because you made this possible. And without your support, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts for your support. For any updates, please don't forget to visit us at www.ifaw.org. We're so looking forward to having you join us for our season 2, episode 1, coming in March of 2021. I can't believe this year is already over. It's unbelievable. So Rachel, thank you tremendously for taking the time of you and all your coworkers to join us today.
Thank you. And I just want to say a huge, huge thank you to everybody at IFAW and all the IFAW supporters. IFAW have been with us on this journey since 2015, and it's made such a huge difference to how we've been able to develop the programme and professionalise. And we really, truly couldn't do it without you. So we are hugely thankful. And I really hope that everyone who's watched today has enjoyed sort of having a behind the scenes tour of the elephant nursery. And I hope that we can do it again soon.
Yes, me too. Okay, bye everybody. Hi everyone. You thought you got rid of me, but you didn't. I love seeing those elephants getting everything they need to flourish, especially after what they've been through. I bet you didn't think you'd be traveling to Africa this year. Surprise, you've already been. Thank you so much for joining us and for celebrating all that we've been able to accomplish together in 2020. I hope that you are as proud as I am to be part of something so incredible like saving the lives of so many animals. Please don't forget to join us for our next episode in March and visit our website, ifaw.org, for updates on our work. Have a healthy and happy holiday season.